Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I'm Maria Casillas, joined here by my incredible co-host, Cody Sizemore. And we are looking forward to having a discussion today. It's not a super exciting one for Cody, but it's, I think, a super important one for all of us because it's something that if it has not yet happened to you, it's gonna. So strap in and we're going to have a fun discussion about that today. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you in all of the times that you're able to tune in, whether it's once a week or every weekers or once a month, whatever it is. We're super glad that you're able to be here, and especially those who are getting caught up. I've heard a few of those in the last couple of days who have said, hey, I've been listening and now I'm listening to 4 or 5 in a day. So there's that too. we appreciate you. And we are hoping that today does not bring any less value than any of the other ones. We're here for it. So Cody, I know that you are not super excited about chatting about this, and for good reason. I get it. It's kind of a heavy topic. But I really appreciate, I'm just going to throw this out there ahead of time, your willingness to do so, because I do think it's something that is going to happen to every single financial coach who stays in the game long enough. So I will preface it with that. All I know really is that you had a couple clients who didn't like something that you said. You told them how it was, you told them the truth, and something either rubbed them the wrong way or they weren't ready to hear it or something, and they no longer work with you, I believe. So I'm going to turn it over to you if that's okay with you, and just say, tell us a little bit about what the situation was, and then we can kind of have a discussion about what went right, what could have been better, and how to move forward from it.
Yeah. So I think it's worth giving a little bit of backstory, some context. So this was a client, they're a married couple. They were clients that were actually referrals from another client that I've been working with for almost 2 years now. And those clients that referred them are, they're rock stars. They've done really, really well. They started in a really challenging spot and they've gotten things into a really good place now, so, coming from those people, I was yeah, these, anyone that you guys know, is going to be sweet, So I talked to this new couple and, did our normal consultation and all that good stuff. And their situation was actually very similar to the couple that referred them initially. Very challenging situation. Was essentially at that break even, maybe slight deficit kind of point. And in our consultation, one of the things that we talked about was hey, right now this is pretty challenging. But the wife in particular was in the process of building her own kind of business through I don't want to give too much away, but essentially it's in an industry that's very well established that she has a lot of potential with, kind of thing. But it's one of those businesses that you have to put in the time, the energy, the effort to really build it in order for it to become really, really profitable, right? But a very proven thing. This isn't something where it's oh, well, I saw this on TikTok and blah blah. No, it's a proven thing, right? So we kind of entered the coaching relationship knowing that two things needed to happen. One was that we need to build this business and start generating that income, and then two was, one of their biggest challenges was self-discipline around spending. So we knew going into it that a lot of what needed to happen in order to get them into a good place was increase their income and decrease their outgo, kind of thing. We were all under that understanding. Everything was good. We hopped in, we started, and the rest is history, right? Well, we get 4 months into our 6-month program, and I have to be, transparent. While I really, really like these people as people, I think that they're great people, good hearts, and I really like them just, personality wise and everything like that. Um, them as clients with like their finances, it was pretty challenging.
Mm,
In fact, one of my more challenging clients I've had recently, not the most challenging client I've ever had, but
mhm.
definitely one, that they were up there kind of thing. And a
What
big
do you think?
reason,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
maybe you're going to answer this question. I was just going to ask, what do you think made them that challenging?
So a big reason for that is because follow through
Mm,
wasn't really a big thing. Follow through with like building that business for the wife, follow through on trying to do things like cutting back on the unnecessary discretionary spending. Like just randomly, like I'd see them post online because we were friends on Facebook about how they just randomly got a new cat
mm.
or they randomly took a weekend trip or like, just stuff like that, you know?
Sabotage.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And the business that she was trying to build is really big on, going after things and following up and stuff like that. But then after several months of things just not really materializing, even after I connected her with some really well established, really highly respected people in that field to
Mm,
help her get things up and running, there was an initial text introduction between them, but then after that, nothing. And she never really went after and got it. And she told
yeah.
me, like, well, I'm more so the type of person that operates with attraction marketing, which means that people come to me. I don't go searching. People come to me, and I'm like,
For
I'm
those of
like,
you who are not watching, his face just did a
yeah,
funny thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, got it. So just stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And it basically, long story short, we went through some challenges. We reworked a few things to make things a little bit more manageable for them. We tried a few different options. We brainstormed on a few different ways to, make the expenses less with their current debts that they have with like refinancing options. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work. Um, and then there was also like a lot of just like miscommunication and scheduling issues too, to where you had to reschedule. So it didn't have a good flow.
Okay.
And one thing led to another to where they reached a point that basically all the options that we tried essentially just hit a wall.
Hmm.
And they came to me and they're like, what do we do from here? Because we're basically considering like, well, do we sell our car? Do we file for bankruptcy? Like what do we do here? Kind of thing. And it got to the point where I had that meeting with them. And then I even told them, I said, hey, I'm going to, before our next meeting, I'm going to hit up my friend Mike Keneally, which is, for those of you who don't know, he's the producer of this show, and he's one of the three members of New Money Habits.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought in outside expertise, which I don't normally do unless I really, really need it. So I
Mm-hmm.
hopped on a Zoom with Mike, ran through their situation with him, and basically, he told me what I was already thinking, which is that, hey, all the options that they're thinking about probably aren't going to make much of a difference or they're not a good option. And really, the only thing that they need to do is they need to work on increasing their income and work on decreasing their outgo. And if they do that, then they have a chance. So basically, we're right back to square one kind of
Right.
thing. And that's what my hunch was. But again, I just wanted to bring in a second pair of eyes just to make sure that I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So went to the next meeting with them and told them about my meeting with Mike and basically just laid it out for them. And I was just like, listen, guys, like all the things that we've talked about doing that we either didn't do or we halfway did, we need to start doing. And that's really the only option that we have here. Right. And I know that it sucks to hear that, but that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we got through that meeting. And then late that night, around 11:45
Oh.
PM, I get an email, and it's a long email
Oh.
from them.
Uh-oh.
And and the long and short of it basically was that they said that they feel like they haven't gotten the value from the coaching that they originally thought that they would, and that they actually didn't really appreciate, um, the feedback of, well, you need to increase your income and decrease your expenses because, quote unquote, we already know that.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what they said is they wanted to discontinue coaching kind of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, I kind of, I sent them a long email back the next morning. Um, and we kind of communicated back and forth throughout the day. And basically what we left with is that, like, maybe this just wasn't a good fit kind of thing. And we just parted ways. We shook hands, we parted ways. And because with my agreement, I have something in there where it's like, if you jump out of the program prematurely, you're still responsible for the full investment.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was from a referral from clients that I really, really love and highly respect, and they've also referred multiple people to me,
Mm-hmm.
I just said, hey, like, don't worry about that. Like, I'm cool just shaking hands and parting ways on good terms kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Wow.
that's the gist of it. But I have something I'd like to say as far as like why I wanted to talk about this today. But before we get into that, I wanted to turn this over to you if there's anything that you want to say, since I've been rambling for the last 8 minutes.
Well, first, I want to just say kudos to you for reaching out to a third set of eyes.
Hmm.
Actually, I guess it'd be a second set of eyes. Sorry. But I think that that's so important to know that you have a sense of humility and knowing that, you know what, I might be missing something, and it's totally okay to reach out to somebody else and ask, like, hey, what do you see that I am missing here? Now, in this case, turns out Mike didn't see anything that you were missing, and so it was fine. It probably gave you a little bit of like just encouragement to know that you
Hmm.
were looking at this in all the ways. But I just wanted to emphasize how important that is to be willing to do that. So, way to go on that. I think that what stood out to me in this particular one is when you kind of glossed over the story for me, just kind of gave me a summary about what we could chat about today. I didn't know about the email, and so
Hmm.
when you said that we got this long email, I immediately like it was one of those.
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
um, and I don't know why that stood out to me, except maybe that they were like when we're angry about something and we really want someone to know something like that's when we just sit down and we write it all out, and the fact that you got it at like 11:45 at night is also a little bit comical to me. I think it's interesting that they said the quote of, more money in, less money out is something we already know. Because as you were talking about all of it, I kept thinking, so this is pretty standard stuff. Like it's stuff that,
Hmm.
most clients come to us knowing or recognizing or finding out that they need to either earn more or spend less or some combination of those two things. So it's not surprising to me that that is the part that they said they already know and that they wanted to put out there as a way to almost like a dig to you, like, well, duh, we already know that. Like, what, bring us some more value. But they actually disregarded the very value that you brought to it. And that is that their behavior needs to be able to change, and they need to not self sabotage, and they need to be willing to, think outside the box and do things that are very uncomfortable or even slightly uncomfortable for them. When you kind of pushed on that, that's when they pushed back. And so I find that a little bit ironic that the value you brought to it was the very value that they disregarded and then needed to switch that up and say, we already know what you're trying to tell us. So that's what I hear as you first talk. And I'd like you to continue on with what you were going to add to it.
Yeah. And so I'll respond to that. I want to first say again, these are good people.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really enjoyed working with them for who they are.
Yeah.
Their values, like what they stand for, like they're really good people. So, I'm really not trying to talk badly about them in any way, shape, or form. It's really just
Mm-hmm.
it's an educational thing for these coaches that are
Of
listening today,
course.
right?
Yeah.
So just want to say that. But you are correct, because the meeting that I had before I received that email, in that meeting, I did call them out and I did say, like, well, there are things happening like this random cat adoption, and you guys got 3 birds as well. And,
Are
I
you
see
sure
you
that wasn't
guys.
just for the cat?
Yeah. Yeah. And I see this happening. I see that happening. And, you haven't really been staying consistent with, your, what I call like your money map or your budgeting side of things. Like, so I did call them out in that meeting. And it just so happened to be that meeting when I did call them out was the meeting right before they sent that email. So I think that you're correct in that sense that like a big part of why they may have hired me was to hold them accountable.
Mhm.
And when I did hold them accountable, it just added to it to where they didn't like it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's why, I think that really what this really came down to is that even though we all liked each other as people, in a working professional setting, probably not the best fit, right? And that's okay. That's okay, right? But, the reason that I brought this up and the reason I wanted to talk about it on this show is because I think that it's really important for us as coaches to not be afraid to tell our clients what they need to hear instead of just trying to keep them happy, even if it means that you might potentially, quote unquote, get fired. Um, because here's the reality of this whole situation. I did do that. I did tell them that this is what you need to hear. This is the reality situation. And I even told them in that meeting, I said, hey, like, I'm going to talk to you with the same type of love and attention that I would if this was my adult children's situation, because I love my kids and I want to make sure that I'm telling them what they need to hear and what's going to be best for them. So I'm giving you the same love, respect, and attention. And I went in. And then it had that outcome. And I kind of like, I wasn't expecting it. I knew that it was a possibility that would happen, but I wasn't expecting it. And then it happened. And
Mhm.
at first I was upset, but then I kind of worked through it and I have made my peace with it, and I think the reason I made my peace with it is because number one, you know, now I'm working with people that really are aligned with me, which is great. I'm looking forward to these meetings,
Mhm.
versus like, "Oh, here we go again," kinda thing,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Um, but on the same token, I also think that even though what was said wasn't well received to them in that moment, maybe there was a seed that was planted.
Mhm.
And maybe at some point, whether it be a month, a year, 5 years down the road, whatever, at some point, something's gonna give in their situation, um, to where they might just be like, "Hey, maybe we actually do need to take that advice and take it seriously." And then they can go and do it, And obviously, I'm hoping that for their situation that it doesn't get to that point. I'm hoping that it just improves, But at the same time, if it needs to get to that point, I think that they have something that they can think back on now, and that's important. Like that's why we do this in the first place is to help people, whether they like it or not, but to help people. And
Mhm.
I think that that's my main point as to why I wanted to bring up this topic today is like, don't be afraid to say what you need to say and to give clients what they need to hear, even if it means that in this moment it could turn out ugly
Mhm.
because we're not playing the here and now short run game. We're always playing the long run, whether it be what you do with their finances, whether it be what you do with their mindsets, their relationship, whatever. I think that generally speaking, most financial coaches are thinking about the big picture overall. And that's what
Mhm.
this is about.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and you likened it to how you would speak to an adult child of yours.
yep.
Um, and all of the outcomes that you mentioned, I think sound very much like an adult parenting a child. Because I mean, I have a couple, just for the record. I know you
Yep.
don't have those yet, but it's a lot of the same approach where it's like I'm looking at more of the long game, and we want to make sure that we have the seed planted, if nothing else. And even though you might get upset about it, given your current circumstances, there might be something you can glean, some wisdom from that, further on down the line. So I think that that's really great. I am curious, if I may, is it okay to ask you a couple questions about the approach that you had with them and see if it would
Sure.
have made any difference? I mean, it might not have made any difference whatsoever, and maybe you've done these things, but for the sake of our listeners, I would just like to ask a couple of questions of you. One is, um, how did you, because you've said a couple times that I told them what they didn't want to hear. You might have used the word, I don't know if you used the word advice or not, but it was more of like telling them something. And I'm curious, how much did you ask them in terms of like the cat and the birds, for example? What did you do to have them reflect on those decisions and how they came to be, even in the midst of everything that they were working on with you?
Yeah, I asked him about that. So this is a really good question. I appreciate you asking this because it is very easy for us as coaches just to tell people things,
Mhm,
right? Whereas what I've learned and what you know is that the best ways to get something across to people is to actually ask questions.
mhm.
Um, and then if it makes sense to then tell, then you can kind of thing. And that's what this situation was. So when I brought that up, I did ask them, I brought it up and I said, what do you think led to you guys making those decisions? And like, why did we end up doing this? You know, th- there's a few things that we discussed, but I'll focus more so on like the cat, right? Because that was the most fresh one, right? What they said was that they had just uh, they had just restructured their kids, moving them out of one school and putting them into a different schooling structure, because there was just some things going on at that school that were not good for the kids. Um, so, the kids were struggling in certain ways. And they said, well, because of that, we were offered this cat. We weren't out there looking for it. It was offered to us. We thought that it would be good for the kids. And also our kids told us that they're paying for the cat. All the expenses, they're paying for the cat.
How old are their kids?
They're all in school.
Okay.
Yep.
So they
I
don't
think
have jobs.
yep. Yep. None of them have jobs.
I've heard
Um,
I've heard the, line about the kids said that they would take care of the new puppy or the new kitten or the cat or whatever.
They
I've
said
never
that
heard someone
they're
say
going to
pay.
pay for the cat, the food, everything like that, and I said, "Okay, well, what happens if there's a major vet bill?"
Mhm.
To which they didn't really have an answer, and I was like, "Okay, so you're paying for the cat."
Well,
Like
I mean, aren't they paying for the cat anyway? I guess I'm confused about that because don't the kids get their money from their parents? I mean,
correct.
maybe they get birthday money and stuff like that, but
Yeah, yeah, and
that's
and
not
that
an
was
income.
right, but that was their response, and I was like,
Okay.
"Okay, well, we can think that, we can say that, but what's the reality of the
Mhm.
situation?" Right? Um, so there were definitely questions like that. And maybe even asking those questions added to that fuel or added
Oh,
to that fire kind of thing.
quite possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it would have added to it, if for no other reason, because when we ask those questions and help people make that realization on their own, that hurts a little bit more.
mhm,
Because
yeah.
and that's probably why they were stewing for a little bit and decided they were gonna write this letter and send it so late, because what they were really doing was processing,
Mhm,
and if they were just mad at you for something stupid that you had said, they would have easily just said, "That's stupid, Cody, like, we're you're fired." Right? Like, they would have just done it right there. But because there was this sense of, realization, recognition, um, ahas, that they were mulling over that, I think, probably for that amount of time, and we're just struggling with how to handle that, and how to really sit with it. And
mhm,
so I'm not surprised that it came out that way. And I appreciate you saying that, you really do like these people. They're not bad people. Of course they're not
mhm,
bad people.
mhm.
And they still have potential, I think, just based on what you've said.
They for
They
sure
still,
do.
yeah, have
For sure.
potential to get themselves into a space where they can truly thrive. It's just that right now they are not ready to make some of those difficult changes, and when we're not ready, we will resist. And so because I'm me, gonna go back to the whole stages of change thing and recognize that it's possible that when they came to you, they looked very similar to the person who was referring them to that couple. um And so that couple is likely in action, and because they looked very similar, it was like, oh, this couple also could get easily to action, but they were probably pretty pre-contemplative, even
Hmm.
when they signed on with you. But because they were given a referral by a friend, they're like, you know what, if it's been working for them, maybe it will also work for me. Because when we see that with other people and we get excited, like, oh, that plan's working for them. What we don't take into account is that they are part of that plan, right? Like they are one of the components of that equation. And we our own thoughts and our own behaviors, we put ourselves in that equation instead. If we're not in a similar place, we're not going to get those results. That's just the way it is, because it's not the plan that's getting them the results. It's the work by the person who's doing said plan. And so they were probably pre-contemplative, and I will absolutely give you props, Cody. I'm sure that you walked them into the at least contemplative and maybe even preparatory stages.
Hmm.
So kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
But that's all it was. They were only preparing for the real change. And when some of that stuff got hard, they're like, nope, we are not ready for this for real. And so they probably bounced back a little bit towards like that, yeah, at least contemplative, maybe even pre-contemplative. Like, I'm just not ready yet. I know there's a problem, but I'm not ready to make that change. And that's nothing that you did that was wrong. It's just this recognition of how we are as humans and where we go and how hard that change is. And so they will be ready someday, I hope. But when they're ready, then they will just go through those stages a lot more quickly, and it
Hmm.
will not be nearly as resistant. So like I said, I'm grateful that you recognize that they are great people and that there is a certainly it's not despairing for them. But maybe you're not the right fit, like you said, and maybe you are. Just for the record, maybe you are the right fit for them when they're in the right stage.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point too. And I will wrap this up by saying I do want to have some humility here, that like there were some things that happened in that coaching relationship that were on me as well.
Mm,
So like one example, like in efforts to rework some of their payments to bring down their overall outgo, again
mm-hmm.
lowering expenses.
Cash flow.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there was one strategy that we had talked about implementing, and on the forefront, I thought that it would be more impactful. And unfortunately, I misunderstood on how one of those things actually worked, like on the
Mm,
back end financials, and it wasn't as impactful. Now, was it
mm,
still impactful if they would have done it? Yes, but not anywhere where we thought it was going to be, kind of thing.
okay.
So that was on me, and I'll take that. And the other side of it too is, like I did mention, that there was some scheduling problems, right?
Yeah.
On their end, for sure, like without a doubt. On my end too, though, because there was a period of time right around this whole like thing that I got wrong at the same time too, that my wife got fired, and in that same week, I also lost my voice for 2 weeks straight. Could not speak. So I couldn't meet with them. So I was like, hey, like we can meet today, but I can't talk. So
You can look at
so
me on the
so
camera if you
let's
want.
so let's push it off, kind of thing. So I think that like with those two things happening at the same time, it
Mhm.
really did add to that frustration for them already that they have already built, and
Mm,
that was partly, I think, part of why when I gave them this like, hey, like this is just where we're at, that it may have just been like the last straw for them,
yeah.
kind of thing,
It might have felt like to them that even though there was some, I don't wanna say blame for you to take on,
Sure.
because that's not really what it is, but even though you've recognized that you had a role in some of that, that when you said what you said, that it maybe felt to them that you were putting it all onto them instead. That's a
For sure.
possibility. And did they say that in the letter? Is that where you're getting some of
They
that?
did.
Or
Yep,
okay,
yep, and
okay.
in my response, I obviously, like, took ownership of what I knew I should take ownership of,
Mhm.
but then I also
Mhm.
was like, "Well, here's this perspective too,"
Mhm.
on my end. So I definitely took ownership of the things that I needed to, for sure, and I think that that's the last piece of this I just wanted to say is, like, when you have these situations, it oftentimes isn't just, well, it's all on one party and not on the other. There's usually something from everyone involved. And I think that what's important is that you don't run away from having that kind of humility and just being like, hey, yeah, like that one's on me. I'll take that, you know?
Yeah, well, that's how we learn. It's how we grow.
Mhm.
And if you're not willing to be able to do that, then you will remain stagnant. And who wants a stagnant coach who's not willing to, do better next time? So I really appreciate that about you as well.
All right. We did it. We
We
talked
did
about
it.
it.
You did it. Good job.
So with that being said, guys, parting message would be that if you have a client that you're working with right now, that you know that you really want to tell them what they need to hear, but you've been a little bit afraid to, have that courage to do it. And understand that like maybe it actually is well received. And because you had that courage, things start to actually happen for these people. But also understand that maybe it's going to have an outcome like how I did. And if that's the case, that is also okay. But it's important just to do what you need to do. With that being said, you guys, thank you for listening to another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. We hope to catch you on the next episode next week. See you then.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.